So last class we had started with module 3, that is optical sources, and I told you about what are the types of sources which we are going to uh, look at in your syllabus. So we have the LEDs and the lasers, and we saw what are the main advantages and the possible disadvantages of using the LED and the laser. So the LED works well with multi-mode fibers, whereas lasers will work well with single mode fibers. Uh, so because lasers are more directional, whereas LED's light is going to spread out, and we still have to see the structure and making how this is possible. Then I explained you the concept of valence band and conduction band, and what is the idea behind the band gap, and three important processes called absorption, spontaneous emission, which are the two in LEDs, and then there's a third one called stimulated emission, which takes place in the laser, right? That's how you get the full form of the laser. It's a stimulated emission of radiation, right? And amplification of the light also occurs. So we'll have to see how this amplification is going to occur. Right? Then lastly, we spoke about direct and indirect band gap, and a few things about momentum. In general, we are going to take those materials which are direct band gap. Right? Then the last part of the last lecture was on what is the requirement from an LED. So the LED in general is going to work uh, in the lower wavelengths, around 800 nanometer or 1000 nanometer. For higher wavelengths, it's not going to work efficiently. You can always work it, but it's not going to be efficient. So what we require from the LED is high radiance, that is brightness. Its response time has to be very high, and the quantum efficiency, which is how many electrons you are injecting and how many photons you are getting at the output. That ratio, that also needs to be high. Mathematically, we are going to derive this after your IA, the quantum efficiency equation, and we'll solve numericals based on that, right? So this whole idea of getting these requirements through the LED happens because of what is known as carrier confinement, where the carriers, the electrons and the holes, are confined, as you can see the name suggests. So you have a structure such that these carriers are confined within the structure of the LED, and also in the lasers we'll see later on. So this carrier confinement helps in getting more light out of the source, and also in case of lasers, because of the cavity, the amplification also. So in this case, we are going to discuss today about the making of the LED and what are the types of the LED, right? So you can have an LED made using what is known as a homojunction, and or a double heterojunction structure. Uh, you can also have, instead of just the double, you can also have a single heterojunction structure. So we still have to see what this heterojunction is. And then we are also going to discuss the types of the LEDs which are specified in your syllabus, namely the surface emitting and the edge emitting LEDs. Right? So I've put in the diagram. This diagram is also specified in the note. So this diagram is that of, or it shows a cross section of double heterostructure LED. Okay. So this is a very common question in the exam also. The heterostructure, of the LED, or the types of the LED. Right? So this is showing us the cross section of the double heterostructure, LED, and it consists of two different alloy layers on each side, right? So if you see, it is going to consist of the N type, and it is going to consist of the P side, and then you also have what is known as the active region. So you can see in the diagram there is something which is specified. So let me mark here so that you can see it clearly. There's something which is known as the active region. This is the active region, number 3, right? So this active region is where your LED is going to really operate, and electrons are going to be converted into the corresponding photons, right? So this is also known as a sandwich structure. Also known as a sandwich structure, and you have what is known as differently composed alloy layers. The composition is different, And because of this, your carriers, right, these are going to be confined in the active region. So the job of this active region here, I'm putting an arrow and writing, is to confine the carriers. And more the carriers that we are able to confine, the better the the output from the LED is going to be there. Right? So you can see that there is an injected electrons at this side, and because of which at these layers, the carriers are going to recombine. So we have the electron hole recombination, and once they recombine, then the photons are going to be generated. And you can see, as an example, we have written the photons are emitted at about 820 nanometer. This is exactly what I was telling you, that the LED is generally used at lower wavelengths of about 820 or 850 nanometers, right? Uh, the carrier confinement, this is the most important point. The carrier confinement is because of the band gap difference. So you can see that we have specified the band gap difference also, and because of which the adjacent layers are going to provide the carrier confinement. Uh, Another way in which the carriers are confined is because of the difference in the refractive index of the adjacent layer. So you can see this is the refractive index here, and the refractive index of these layers is different. So this layer will have different index, this one will have different, and this will be a different, and because of this the carrier is going to be confined. So you can see that here we have also written carrier confinement, right? So because of these carrier because of the difference in the refractive index also, the carrier is going to be confined, and that's how we are going to get the light to be emitted out of the LED, right? Uh, if you use the LED at lower wavelengths, works well. With higher wavelengths, there are problems because of the electron hole recombination. Also with distance, as I've already specified, the LED's light is going to spread out. It's not going to be a very directional light, right? So based on this heterostructure LED, right? It's called heterostructure because you have multiple structures and they have their own properties. The properties are not the same, right? That is why it is known as the heterostructure. Now, because of this heterostructure and the differences in the band gap energy and the differences in the refractive index of the materials or the alloys which are used, the LED is going to operate and the carrier is going to be confined. Okay. So based on this heterostructure, in your syllabus, two types of LEDs are specified. So I've put the diagram for both the types. So let's just quickly discuss the first type. So the first type is known as the surface emitting LED. These are also known as front emitters. Front emitters. So you can see in the diagram, this is also put up in the notes. So in this configuration, so plane of the active light which emits the light, it is perpendicular to the axis of the fiber. So we are using a fiber here, right? So this is the fiber there, and this plane from where the active light is going to be emitted, this plane here, it is perpendicular to the fiber. So you can see that the fiber looks like it is inserted into this plane. Okay. uh, so that is the first important point. The other is you have a substrate that we etch into this device, and the fiber is cemented into it. So it's like a gap, it's like a space where the fiber can be cemented. And because of this, the whatever light is emitted from the active region, so you can see this is the active region here, I've underlined it. So this is your active region here, and whenever light is emitted from this active region here, it goes exactly into the fiber and it comes out, right? So the fiber itself is etched. So that is the important point. So fiber is etched into the active region. Okay. and because of this, whatever light will be generated goes directly into the fiber, right? So you have this active area, which is basically circular. As you can see, I'll just draw upon it. So you can see that this is a circular area, right? And this helps in the fiber being cemented there. And this will have some amount of thickness and some amount of diameter there. So in general, this diameter will be about 50 micrometer diameter, and the thickness will be somewhere around 2.5 to 3 micrometer thickness. You can also see that where the active region is, okay, this part here, you also have what are known as the confinement layers. So these two layers are the confinement layers, and this is where your carriers are going to be confined, and that on the other end you can see is defined as the double heterojunction structure which we saw earlier, right? So here we'll see a little later during quantum efficiency derivation that for this kind of the LED, the surface emitting LED, the emission pattern, is what is known as isotropic. Is known as isotropic. So it is not just directional light that comes out. It is more like it is isotropic. That means the light spreads out, and and there is some angle at which the light reaches the receiver, right? So that we will discuss a little later. This also specifically, again, we'll discuss this during quantum efficiency. This is known as a Lambertian pattern. A Lambertian pattern. So just to draw it for you on top. So if this is the, let's say this is the source, the light which comes out of the source follows a structure like this. So this will be the light, okay, and this will have some angle. So if I'm standing here from this side, I will be viewing the light at certain angle, and the maximum angle uh, at which I can see this light, the maximum angle, that angle is 60 degree in the Lambertian pattern, right? And it is found in terms of cos theta, right? That we'll see when we are deriving the quantum efficiency, right? So for the surface emitting LED, we must remember that it will also function as the double heterostructure. Uh, the fiber is going to be etched into the active region, and the emission pattern is what is known as isotropic or Lambertian in nature. So it's just not going to be directional light. So you can see that the light will start in the diagram I've just drawn. The light will start at a particular angle. It is supposed to be directional, the dotted line, but it spreads out. Okay, that is the disadvantage of the LED. Okay, the next type of LED which we have, and you can clearly see the difference here, is known as the edge emitting LED, and it consists of an active junction region. So you can see this is the active region here. This is the one that I'm darkening further. This is the active region here, and that is the double heterojunction layer. And this is the source of light, and we have two guiding layers. Two guiding layers. Okay, so you can see here at the back we have specified light guiding layers. So these are nothing but the confinement layers. These are nothing but the confinement layers. Okay. So these guiding layers or confinement layers, they have a refractive index which is usually lesser than that of the active region, but it will be higher than the surrounding region, right? So the confinement layer refractive index will be between that of the active layer and the surrounding layer, and this structure, it forms a waveguide channel, right? It will guide the light, it will act as a channel, and it will direct the radiation, the optical radiation or light towards the fiber core. And as you can see at the output here, at this part here, which I had drawn previously also, this is the light that we get out of the LED, but you can see that this light is spread out. It is a spread light. Okay, it is incoherent in nature, and you can see that this spread has an angle. So if I'm standing here somewhere, from here I can see the light at these angles, and that angle, as I specified, is 60 degrees. Okay, so the previous diagram we saw from like the side view, and this diagram of the edge emitting LED we are seeing from the front view. Okay. There are other aspects to the diagram also, like a heat sink, metal electric contacts. Okay, these are all done in the making of the edge emitting LED. What is important is for us is that it has a double heterojunction structure. It has the confinement layers. The confinement layers refractive index is between that of the active region and that of the surrounding region. Right. So again, this kind of a LED will also give us the Lambertian pattern, because ultimately it's an LED. The core diameter here will be somewhere between 50 to 100 micrometer, and the width or the thickness will be somewhere around 50 to 70 micrometer. This will be the thickness. Okay, and the Lambertian pattern I've just explained you, that the light is going to be spread out, rather than being a directional light. Right? So from an exam point of view, you will have to redraw the diagrams which are shown here. They are also present in the notes, and then you'll have to explain the important points. So I've mentioned the important points for you. There's something that you can build on that also, depending on the marks which are allocated to the particular question. Right? So of these, the types of LEDs have been asked more often than the heterostructure, but heterostructure has also been asked. Okay. The next point in the LED is the light source materials. So this is specified in your syllabus, but they have not specified exactly what has to be done in this. It goes more towards the chemistry aspect. So I'm just going to give you some brief idea about this, and then just maybe solve a problem based on this. But we'll not go into the depth of the chemistry aspects. Okay. So by this light source material, we are interested in material to be used in the active region. So material which is used in the active region, and for this, for the active layer or the active region of this optical source, the LED, we generally used those kind of materials which have direct band gap energy. Uh, this will also help us in radiative recombination, means more light is going to be generated. We'll talk about radiative recombination mathematically when we are deriving the quantum efficiency. And so with these kind of materials, the recombination, the carrier confinement is high, and therefore the emission which is generated out of these kind of materials is also very, very high, adequate level what we require. Right? So in general, an individual, a single semiconductor element, it cannot just be a direct band gap material. Therefore we need to combine and make compounds so that we can have direct band gap energy, right? So various such materials the researchers have seen, and they've come up with various materials which can be combined and a compound can be made so that we can have direct band gap energy. And so that is what is shown in the graphs which I'm portraying on your screen. So there's the first graph, there is the band gap energy with the wavelength, and you can see that it has an exponential increase. You have both direct and indirect there, and you also have what is known as the mole fraction. This mole fraction is how we are combining the materials to make a compound so that they have direct band gap energy, right? The diagram at the second diagram is showing you the output power of the LED. This I have drawn earlier, and it shows you that the center wavelength of an LED, right? If I draw a dotted line, you can see that the center wavelength is 810. That means we are expecting the LED to work at this wavelength. However, LED is giving us some spread out light, and that amount is 36 nanometer, right? So the peak is 810 nanometer, but the LED is giving us somewhere between 36, so 18 on one side and 18 on the other side. So it's a plus minus 18 nanometer, right? And this will depend on the kind of material that we use. So many materials have been used to make such compounds which will work at work as direct band gap energy, and the spectral width can then be lowered, right? We want the LED to work at only a particular wavelength, right? So I'll just give you the different materials. We are not going into the chemistry aspect of the materials, but we just want to see which kind of materials can be used, right? So the most popular one is gallium aluminum arsenide. The other one is indium gallium arsenide. Right? So these are known as ternary and quaternary materials. Ternary and quaternary materials. Okay, so we just have mathematics through which we can have the direct band gap energy of these kind of compounds. These are compounds, these are not single materials, right? You can see that. So we know that we have E equal to HF, which can also be written as Hc by lambda. Here lambda is peak emission wavelength. Okay, and we can also write from this equation here as Hc by E, and we can use the Planck's constant value and the value of C, and what we will obtain is lambda in micrometer as 1.24 divided by Eg. I've changed E to Eg to denote its band gap energy, and this should be in electron volts. So this is a standard equation we can use to find the peak emission wavelength. We put the value of H and C in the numerator to get 1.24, and then we can uh, always have the band gap energy, right? So these band gap energies of different materials, these are constant values. So I'm sure you are aware of silicon. Silicon will have about 1.12 electron volt. We can use the gallium arsenide, and that value will be 1.43 electron volt. Uh, we can also use indium phosphate, that will be somewhere around 1.36 electron volt, and so on. So different compounds can be made, and you can have different kinds of Eg, that is the electron volts. So this is the material here, and this is Eg, which is the band gap material. Right? So different kinds of alloys compounds can be made, and you can have different kinds of uh, combinations. So just to give you an example, we can have ternary alloys, and this will have Eg as some 1.42 plus 1.26x plus 0.266x square, and here x is between 0 to 0.37. This is known as the mole fraction. So how much amount we are adding, that is specified by the text. You can also have quaternary alloys, and for them the Eg is 1.35 minus 0.72y plus some 0.12y square. Okay, this is just for your information. So what kind of materials can be used to find combine together to find the alloys, right? So So this is one aspect of the LEDs which we have discussed, where we have the types of LEDs and also how to structure the LED, right? So next we really want to discuss what is the quantum efficiency and the power that we get out of an LED, right? Here till now something which we have not discussed something which we have not discussed is LED modulation. Okay, please keep in mind we have discussed modulation till now only for electrical signals. Okay, the usual modulation which we do in all your those signals, you have current and you have or voltage, and then you use a modulator to modulate the signal using a high frequency carrier, and the frequency will increase, the bandwidth will increase, you transmit it, and at the receiver we are using the demodulator. But in all of those scenarios, the signal was electrical in nature. But here we are dealing with signals which are optical in nature, means you are dealing with light, right? So there is also one aspect of LED modulation which we should be discussing, right? So that is very interesting in the sense that in that modulation part, we will see how electric bandwidth or electrical bandwidth is related to optical bandwidth, because there is obviously a difference between the two, right? So wherever the electrical value is there, what is the optical value? Is it the same? Is it not the same? If it is not the same, why is it not the same? And what is the difference in the values? If it is the same, why is it the same, and so on. So we'll try to answer that question also. Very important aspect, followed by some numericals based on that. Okay. So that will be the other part which we want to discuss. But before that, let's quickly discuss just the points. Possibly we may not have time for the mathematics, but very important factor of quantum efficiency and power of LEDs. Right, so quantum efficiency basically means how much current is inserted, or how many electrons are flowing inside the LED and how many of them are converted into corresponding photons. Means how much light is then generated from that LED. So we define this in two terms. So I'll introduce the second term later, but here we define it in terms of internal quantum efficiency. And this internal quantum efficiency, this occurs in the active region, and this is nothing but fraction of electron hole pairs. So let me write it this way. So fraction of electron hole pairs that recombine radiatively. Electron hole pairs that recombine radiatively. Right. So this I had explained in the last lecture. If, for example, you have 100 electrons which are injected, you expect all of them to be converted into corresponding photons. So your efficiency is 100, but that is not going to happen. So there is some, there's going to be some loss, so to say, that all electrons will not be converted into the photons, right? So how much of these electron pairs will recombine radiatively is the internal quantum efficiency. So it is given as so let me say the internal quantum efficiency is given as ratio of radiative recombination rate to the total recombination rate. This definition implies that apart from radiative recombination rate, or apart from radiative recombination, there is some other kind of recombination also occurring, right? So this ratio basically is uh, radiative divided by total radiation, right? So how much light has been generated divided by the total radiation. This could be light plus something else, that is light plus no light, if we want to understand it that way, right? So that ratio is going to be the internal quantum efficiency, right? So we want to see what this internal quantum efficiency will look like in terms of mathematics. Okay, so before that, let us build up to this mathematics so we can get the equation, right? So due to, I'll write this point wise so you can, it is easier for you to recollect. So due to carrier injection, carrier injection means the input, you have the electrons which are injected, the current, right? To carrier injection, an excess electron hole is created in the p and n material, right? So because of the carrier injection, once we give the current, then the electron hole pair is going to be generated respectively in the p and the n junction, right? So we'll call this excess carrier density, excess carrier density, uh, and this is known to decay exponentially with time. So n is the carrier density, and n naught is the initial injected electron density, and this is known to decay exponentially with time. So you have e raised to minus t divided by some tau, where tau is lifetime of the carrier, means how long the carrier will sustain. So carrier lifetime, this is an important parameter. This will help us in defining the quantum efficiency, right? So let us call this equation 1. So in equation 1, it is showing us that the carrier density, total carrier density n, is a function of the initial carrier density n naught, and that initial carrier density is going to decay exponentially with time as e raised to minus t by tau, where tau is the carrier lifetime, right? So next point, the total rate at which carriers are generated will be the sum of externally supplied rate and thermally generated rate. That means due to the temperature also, the there is going to be some rate of the carriers that is going to be generated, right? So we'll call the external supplied rate. External supplied means the external energy which we are giving, right? External supplied rate is, let's call it some J divided by QD, and we'll define these factors. J is current density. So this will be the current per current per area. So you'll have this as ampere per centimeter square or meter square. Ampere per centimeter square or meter square. Q is the electron charge, and D is thickness of the recombination region. Recombination region. So how much is the region over which this recombination is going to occur, right? Next is the thermal generated rate, and this is equal to negative n divided by tau, because with time this kind of rate is going to decrease because temperature becomes more and more constant, right? So we define the total rate of carriers as a differential dn by d tau, because with time this is changing. So we are going to have j divided by qd minus n divided by tau, the sum of the two supplied rates, right? Now if we want, so this is an important equation, this will help us later on. So this is the total rate of carriers. Now for equilibrium, obviously what we need is that the carriers are going to be constant, or there is going to be steady state in that particular equation. So in that case, the electron density, or how many carriers are there in the active region, this needs to have constant current flowing through it, right? So in this case, the for equilibrium, n just becomes j tau. So j tau divided by qd. So because under equilibrium, the left hand side just becomes, the right hand side are equal to each other. So you'll have j by qd equal to n by tau, right? So you'll have j tau divided by qd. So under equilibrium, the n value would look like this. This represents steady state. Steady state. Right. So this equation will help us in defining the or finding the equation for the internal quantum efficiency, and then that will henceforth help us in finding the power, and after the power then we can solve various problems based on that, right? So this is an important equation for equilibrium, and also the total rate of carriers is also something which is important. Okay, so we'll be using this equation to solve the problems later, and to also find the modulation, or how the LED is going to be modulated.